Welcome to another edition of the Schmidt Storm. You've got questions, I've got answers. The first question is from Sue, and it's about the federal takeover of Washington, D.C. And she asks, is this constitutional? Is this legal? It's a great question. And so, is it legal? Is something that's going to be adjudicated by the courts. Is it constitutional? It is, in that the president has unique and extraordinary authorities in the federal district, which is neither a state nor a territory, that he does not have in other places and other states. So, when Donald Trump says this is coming to a blue state city near you, he does not have in those places the authority to do legally what he's doing in Washington, D.C. But the question is it appropriate? And the answer to that question is, of course it isn't. What we're seeing is arrogance, a high-handedness, an obnoxiousness, an assertive, aggressive use of power by the state for the purpose of making people fear their government, which is incompatible with liberty in a system where we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, that has consecrated itself around this idea that the purpose of life is the pursuit of happiness, and every human being is created equal with inalienable rights that include life, liberty, and, like I said, happiness. And so the judgment of Donald Trump is that American democracy, that our country, the most complex in the history of the world, should have a new form of government. And that form of government is one-man rule. Donald will make all the decisions. If Donald doesn't like what a CEO believes in his private life, he'll take it out on that company and all of the employees. Donald believes in freedom so long as the first freedom you express is loving Donald. He doesn't appreciate dissent, doesn't believe in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, doesn't believe in elections. And so when you see the masked men and the deployments, and you see the propaganda of Judge Jeanine or Kristi Noem talking about they won't tolerate the abuse of a police officer or an ICE agent, they believe in the use of violence, including against the police and including against the people's government, if it yields them power. And they believe in the use of state violence to remain in power. And this is a catastrophe. And it's a young catastrophe that's just starting to bloom. And the implications of all of this are horrible to contemplate. So we'll just leave it there for today. Does he have the power? He does. Should he use the power? He should not. Should the use of that power be opposed? It must. The second question is from Joe, and it's about California Governor Gavin Newsom and his plan to redistrict California to offset the Texas redistricting. What I say with regard to this is not something to celebrate, but to appreciate as a necessitous action. It's necessary. What Gavin Newsom appreciates is that Democrats are not winning. What Gavin Newsom appreciates is that Donald Trump is subjugating the country, and we're all losing. He appreciates the economy is cracking up. Let's watch.
Wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
All true. And so, because a democratic process is being used and abused in an unprecedented way to take away voting rights reciprocally, it is appropriate to use a maximum philosophy of power to fight back against it. And in California, that requires a ballot initiative be passed to overturn the will of the people in a Schwarzenegger-era ballot reform initiative that took the power away from the politicians to draw the districts and put it into the hands of the people, which is a good thing, because gerrymandering is a bad thing. But a worse thing is the use of gerrymandering by a tyrant to strip agency and democracy and to remain in power without an opposition responding to the reality of the moment. And so what Governor Newsom is doing in this moment is refusing to bury his head in the sand. He is refusing to pretend that things are okay. And he is saying to California, which is under federal siege, and he is saying to the American people, here in California, we will use the tools of democracy to fight for liberty against MAGA, which uses the tools of democracy to oppose your liberty and to take away your freedom. Sally asks, what will happen in the Anchorage summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin? Well, the short answer to that question is nothing good. A shorter answer is there will be appeasement. A longer answer will be that the peace of the world will be profoundly jeopardized as an American president has circles run around him by a smarter, more devious, more clever, more experienced leader who understands as a former KGB colonel that what's sitting across from him is a schlub, a schlepper, a mark, and a buffoon. The only people in the world who are afraid of Donald Trump are America's media mandarins and a fair number of Democrats in Congress. America's enemies are not afraid of this clown, have not been afraid of this clown. They celebrate him. He has no concept, no clue about the history of the region, the history of Russia, the history of Ukraine. He is a proverbial bull in a china shop. And what he leaves behind in that china shop is broken glass and bullshit. And broken glass and bullshit isn't enough when it comes to dealing with Vladimir Putin. And by the way, Donald's Munich in the last frontier, well, the Ukrainians who've been at war for 10 years, they get a vote. And the Europeans get a vote. And so Donald's not king of the world. And the future of Ukraine isn't going to be decided in Anchorage, Alaska without any Ukrainians in the meeting. No matter what nonsense you hear from Scott Jennings on CNN. It's not real life. What's real life is what's happening in Ukraine, where there are 1 million Russian casualties and the Russian military has been largely destroyed. The war is terrible, but the war can be stopped by the aggressor stopping the war, by the rapist stopping the raping, by the pillager stopping the pillaging. That's how the war in Ukraine stops. When Ukraine's men and women can go back home to their families and live in peace and raise those families, speaking their language, appreciating their culture, and loving their country. Because a great many men and women have died for freedom, which was a concept that not so long ago was deeply embedded in our American faith, until a disease, a cancer, something called nationalism, rooted itself and deceived people and lured them away from patriotism into the cancer. In Ukraine, patriotism is not an abstraction. It's a requirement for survival. And we're going to share that with Ukrainians very soon in this country. Patriotism will be a requirement for survival, because unless we believe in something, then we stand to lose everything. And I guess that's the warning. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning. I invite you to join this community where I promise to be honest, blunt, and direct about what is happening in this country. America is in crisis. Follow and subscribe to this channel and on Substack. Thank you.